So, in the list of top inflammatory foods, milk is featured among the top 6, I would say. And why is that? Lots of people think it's because of the lactose. So, the lactose is the sugar in the milk, and we need an enzyme called lactase that is produced in the finger like projections of your intestines, your microvilli. And it would break that down into its components so we would absorb it. When you are deficient in that enzyme, the sugar stays in your gut and it's fermented by the bacteria, which will give you that abdominal distension, that bloating, that gas, and even pull water into your GI and give you some osmotic diarrhea. So that does cause inflammation because it could cause a dysbiosis because you're feeding the bacteria way too much. It could cause some leaky gut, or it's also because of inflammation that sometimes you don't have the enzyme, since they're produced in those finger-like projections in your intestines. When those cells are inflamed, you're just not producing the lactase enough. But really the inflammation comes more from the protein portion of the milk, which is divided into 2 parts, the whey and the casein. Casein is around 80% of the protein, and cows originally would only produce one type of casein called A2. And A2 is not as inflammatory as A1. But after a few years, the cows in Northern Europe just spontaneously mutated and started producing A1, so casein A1. And we don't know why that happened. But casein A1, when we metabolize that, its subproduct, it forms something called beta caseomorphin 7. And casein A2 produces beta caseomorphin 9, which is not inflammatory. It actually has antihypertensive properties, which would lower blood pressure. These cows that produce A2, which is not the inflammatory casein, they are more in Asia, in India. So I guess that's why Ayurveda says that it is good to have milk sparingly in certain situations in the diet. Not for kapha. When a person has a imbalance in their kapha dosha, they should not be having milk. But all the other doshas, or when you are in balance, then milk would be fine. Especially lassi, which is a type of like spiced yogurt, could be used. And we can see milk in the Bible, and I'm sure Jesus would never tell us to eat things that would make us sick. But the thing is that the milk has changed. And now the casein A1 produces this, that when we break it down, it's inflammatory because of beta caseomorphin 7, which is inflammatory. It ups the production of mucus. So that's why you get respiratory problems. You can see mucus in your feces. It also inhibits the production of lactase. So you get even more lactose intolerant. It interacts with the opioid receptors in your GI, and it can mess you up as well like that. So those are one of the reasons, and that milk can be inflammatory. The thing is, human milk has casein A2, which is the good kind. Sheep, goat, and water buffalo also produce A2, which is not as inflammatory. And there's also the A2 cows, the ones in Asia, original ones, or the ones that now they have been breeding for it to be A2, and you can find A2 milk in the grocery store. Does that mean that now that you can find the A2 milk, or if you switch to goat or to buffalo milk or cheese, that would be okay and not inflammatory? Well, no. It just means that you're not getting that part of the inflammation. But if you let's think about what milk is. It is an anabolic food, correct? It is to make grow a little tiny whatever mammal, into its adult size. So it promotes growth. Well, as an adult, we're not growing anymore. And if you're eating something that promotes growth, it could enhance tumors, for example. Grow that, or you will grow to the side, right? You will gain weight, because milk and dairy products will have an insulin response, and insulin is an anabolic hormone. It is made for the cells to uptake energy, and when they are not growing in stature, you are growing to your size. So that is another thing that you have to consider, that milk have hormones and substances that promote growth. The other thing that you should consider is that milk, the animals that are producing this milk, they are being injected with hormones for them to lactate more. They're being injected with medicines and antibiotics, and they're eating grain genetically modified feed, and that is all coming through the milk, and you are ingesting all that. So you are overloading your liver because it's trying to detox all that. And so if you do insist in having milk, you should at least try to buy organic, because these cows are eating pasture, which they were supposed to eat, and they are exercising, and they are not and when they do receive any kind of medical treatment, which sometimes they need to, they allow enough time for that medication to leave their system before they harvest that milk or that meat. Anyway, so do choose organic in the case of you wanting to have dairy in your diet. And how do you know you're having a reaction? Usually it's skin or respiratory related. Either you have a stuffy nose all the time, or sinus, especially sinus infections, asthma, a lot of skin issues like rashes and itches and eczema. All that can be very related to dairy consumption because of this inflammation. And the thing that I'm always stressing here about inflammation is because inflammation is the underlying cause of all chronic disease, whether it's cardiovascular, whether it's cancer, whether it's metabolic disease. It does not matter. Any chronic disease has an underlying inflammation that drives it. Okay, it might not be the like what started it, but it really is the driver, and it could be the thing that started it. It just depends. It's case by case. So that's why we're always trying to avoid foods and toxins and stress and things that inflame our body, because that is the start of it all, or the what is it? The promoter of chronic disease.